นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะ I would like to start by paying homage to the Lord Buddha, offering salutation to senior and junior monks respectively, and extending greetings to all the lay supporters who are listening in from home today. Today is Monday, May the 18th, 2020. I am Phra Nicholas Thanissaro of Dhammapada International Meditation Center in Azusa, and today I would like to share a short Dhamma talk on the topic of the power of faith in the Buddha. Manopubbaṅgamā dhammā manoseṭṭhā manomayā manasā pasannena bhāsatī karoti tato sukham anveti chāyā anapāyinī. The mind leads all actions in this life. The mind is their chief and makes all decisions. If you speak or act with a calm, pure mind, then happiness follows you like a shadow that never leaves. Today I would like to elaborate on this Buddhist proverb that is derived from the second verse of the Dhammapada, as a principle for all those listening in today to put into practice in your everyday lives. We are gathered here today in order to celebrate the life of Mr. Pailack Wongprasert, who recently passed at the age of 62. At the behest of his wife, Phra Wongprasert and family, tonight, on the occasion of the interment of Mr. Pailack's ashes, here at Dhammapada International Meditation Center, Azusa, we are going to perform a funeral rite to generate merit for Mr. Pailack Wongprasert. Today I'm going to give you a Dhamma talk about Maṭṭakuṇdali, which illustrates the power of faith in the Buddha. Once upon a time, in the town of Savatthi, there lived a Brahmin called Manopubbaṅgamā, which literally means Mr. Never Give, on account of his being known for his stinginess. He had one son and was very fond of him, wanting to give him a pair of golden earrings. Nonetheless, his stinginess got the better of him, and instead of paying a goldsmith to make the earrings, he beat out the gold himself and gave his son a pair of burnished earrings. In this way, his son came to be known as Master Burnished Earrings, or Maṭṭakuṇdali. When Maṭṭakuṇdali was 16 years old, he had an attack of jaundice. The mother looked at the boy and said, "Brahmin, your son is sick. Have him treated by a doctor." However, the Brahmin said, "Wife, if I send for a doctor, I shall have to pay an expensive fee. Do you care nothing about such a loss of wealth?" So the wife asked the Brahmin what was he going to do about it. He replied that he would manage things in such a way as to save as much money as possible. So the Brahmin went to various doctors, and considering theoretical advice to be free, he asked, "What are you in the habit of prescribing for such and such an ailment?" Those doctors make vague references to medication such as the bark of trees, and let the Brahmin go on his way. The Brahmin procured some tree bark and prepared a remedy for his son, but in spite of all he did, his son's condition grew worse day by day, until finally he was beyond help. Only then, perceiving that his son was very weak, did the Brahmin send for a proper doctor. The doctor took one look at Maṭṭakuṇdali and excused himself, saying to call another doctor instead. The Brahmin now realized that his son was on his deathbed, but instead of being concerned about the well-being of his son, he worried, "Any visitor who comes to pay their last respects to my son will see all the wealth hoarded up in my house and criticize me for not spending anything on the proper treatment of my son. Therefore, I will put my dying son outside on the balcony so that they can visit him there." That day, very early in the morning, the Buddha was meditating, as was his habit, to see whom he could bring the maximum benefit that day. The vision of Maṭṭakuṇdali lying on his deathbed on the balcony appeared to the Buddha in his meditation. As soon as the Buddha saw this vision, he realized, if I do not go to this young man to inspire faith in him, he will die without having performed any merit in his life. Accordingly, later that day, having prepared his robe and bowl, the Buddha, with a large company of monks, entered the city of Savatthi for alms, and in due course arrived at the house of Maṭṭakuṇdali. At that time, Maṭṭakuṇdali was lying with his face turned towards the house. The Buddha, observing that Maṭṭakuṇdali could not see him, sent forth a ray of light. "What is this radiance?" asked Maṭṭakuṇdali, turning over. Seeing the Buddha from where he lay, he said, "On account of a foolish father, I have been deprived of the privilege of approaching so excellent a Buddha. Neither have I had the privilege of waiting upon him, giving him alms, or hearing the Dhamma. Now I cannot even control the movements of my hands. There is nothing more I can do." All he could do was to arouse faith in the Buddha. The Buddha said, "He has done enough," and departed. As the Buddha receded from his range of vision, Maṭṭakuṇdali died with a believing heart. As if waking from sleep, he was reborn in the second level of heaven, or Tawadingsa, in a golden mansion 30 leagues in extent. Meanwhile, back in the human realm, the Brahmin cremated his son and abandoned himself entirely to lamentation. Every day he would go to the cemetery weeping and plead, "Where are you, my only son?" The deity that was his former son surveyed his own heavenly rewards, reflecting, "What deed of merit did I do to deserve all of this?" Perceiving that it was the karmic fruit of arousing faith in the Buddha, he said to himself, "This Brahmin failed to provide medicine for me when I was sick, but now goes to the cemetery and weeps. I must effect a change in his attitude." Accordingly, he took the form of Maṭṭakuṇdali, went to a place not far from the cemetery, and himself stood wringing his hands and weeping. The Brahmin saw him and thought to himself, "I have a proper reason for weeping because I am grieving my son. But why should that young man be weeping? I will ask him." So he addressed his question to the young man in verse, saying, "Richly adorned, wearing earrings of burnished gold, bearing garlands with protuberances of yellow sandal, you wring your hands and weep. Why are you afflicted in the midst of the forest?" The young man replied, "I have obtained a chariot of solid shining gold, but I cannot find a pair of wheels for it. I will certainly die of sorrow unless I can find wheels for my chariot." The Brahmin said to him, "Tell me what wheels you want. Be they made of gold, precious stones, copper or silver, just tell me, young man, and I will provide your chariot with that pair of wheels." Hearing this, the young man thought to himself, "This Brahmin failed to provide medicine for his son, but seeing that I look like his son, now he says he will provide me with wheels made of gold, precious stones, copper or silver. It is obvious that I will need to humble him further." So he asked the Brahmin, "How large a pair of wheels will you provide for my chariot?" "As large as you wish," replied the Brahmin. "Then give me the moon and the sun for my chariot wheels," demanded the young man, "because since my chariot is made of solid gold, such a pair of wheels will certainly make it shine all the brighter." The Brahmin retorted, "Young man, you must be really dumb, to seek for what cannot be obtained. I suppose you will surely die of grief, because there is no way that you could ever obtain the moon and the sun as your chariot wheels." But the young man said to him, "But which one of us is dumber? The one who weeps for something that exists, or the one who weeps for something that does not exist? The sun and the moon come and go for all to see. Their brightness is seen on both sides of the street. But no one can see your son who is dead and gone. Which one of us weeping here is the dumber of the two? Hearing this, the Brahmin came to the conclusion that the young man spoke the truth, and agreed that his own grief was the dumber of the two, saying, like a child crying for the moon, I desired a son that is dead and gone. Freed from sorrow by the advice of the young man, the Brahmin pronounced the following verses in gratitude. When I was all on fire, and the fire was as if fed with ghee, you poured water, as it were, on the fire, and extinguished all my grief. You drew out the arrow that was in me, the sorrow that was in my heart. Although I was dead with sorrow, you removed my sorrow for my son. The arrow of my grief has been withdrawn. I am tranquil and happy. Having heard your words, young man, I sorrow no more, nor do I weep. Then the Brahmin asked him, Tell me, young man, who are you? Are you a heavenly apparition or a demon? The young man replied, I am he for whom you lament, he for whom you weep, your son, whom you yourself cremated in this very cemetery. By the performance of a work of merit, I have attained the heaven of the 33. The Brahmin was incredulous, protesting, How could this be? Because I never saw my son give alms or uphold the precepts. By what work of merit did you attain the heavenly realms? The young man replied, As I lay in my own home, sick, afflicted, oppressed with a grievous ailment, my body weakened by disease, I beheld the Buddha, free from passion, free from doubt, happy of lofty wisdom. With joyful mind and believing heart did I pay homage to the Tathagata, with hands reverently clasped. By the performance of this work of merit, I attained the second level of heaven. Upon hearing the young man's reply, the whole body of the Brahmin was suffused with joy, causing him to exclaim, Wonderful, marvelous, that such a minor deed performed out of faith should lead to a heavenly afterlife. I too, with joyful mind and a heart of faith, seek refuge in the Buddha this very day. The young man responded, This very day, with a heart that has taken refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, you should also uphold the 5 precepts, keep them unbroken and pure. Refrain from taking life. From this moment forth, take not that which is not given to you, drink no liquor, speak no lies, and be content with your own wife. Very well, said the Brahmin, agreeing. The young man continued, Brahmin, you have much wealth in your house. Approach the teacher, that is the Buddha, give alms, listen to the Dhamma, and ask him questions. Having exhorted the Brahmin in this way, the young man disappeared. The Brahmin went home and said to his wife, Tomorrow I will invite the monk Gotama to my house and ask him questions. Therefore prepare a great meal. Then he went to the monastery and, without saluting the Buddha or expressing any pleasure at seeing him, stood on one side and said, Sir Gotama, please consent to take a meal at my house today with your company of monks. The Buddha consented. As soon as the Brahmin received the Buddha's consent, he returned home quickly and prepared an elaborate meal. The Buddha, accompanied by a large community of monks, went to the Brahmin's house and stood at the place that had been prepared. The Brahmin served the Buddha and the monks respectfully. Now, when the Buddha had finished his meal, the Brahmin approached him and asked, Sir Gotama, are there any that have been reborn in heaven without giving alms to you, without rendering honor to you, without hearing the Dharma, without keeping precepts, solely by making an act of faith? The Buddha replied, Brahmin, why do you need to ask me? Did not your own son Maṭṭakuṇdali tell you that he had been reborn in heaven simply by arousing faith in me. Brahmin, it is not a question of 100 or 200 such people. Countless is the number of those who have been reborn in heaven merely by faith in the Buddha. But only when the Buddha summoned Maṭṭakuṇdali the angel to back up his words were all those in the audience assuaged of their doubts, and were able to exclaim, "Marvelous indeed are the powers of the Buddhas." The son of the Brahmin Manopubbaṅgamā attained heavenly rebirth simply by arousing faith in the Buddha, without doing any other single act of merit. And they were filled with joy, at which point the Buddha concluded with the proverb with which we started this discourse, that Manopubbaṅgamā dhammā manoseṭṭhā manomayā manasā pasannena bhāsatī vā karoti vā tato sukham anveti chāyā vā anapāyinī. The mind leads all actions in this life. The mind is their chief and makes all decisions. If you speak and act with a calm, pure mind, then happiness follows you like a shadow that never leaves. There are at least 3 morals to this story. The first message is that there is no point crying for the moon, or crying over spilt milk for that matter. The Buddha advised in the Tirokuta Sutta that we must not surrender to the emotions of grief, since no weeping, sorrow, or any kind of mourning will help departed ones, whose kin remain. Instead, when an offering is given on behalf of those departed ones, well placed in the monastic community, it will bring immediate benefit to the deceased, as well as far into the future. Secondly, the story conveys the message that stinginess did not serve the Brahmin well, because for as long as the mind is filled with the darkness of stinginess, good or wholesome thoughts cannot enter the mind. As we have seen from the Brahmin failing to take good care of his son simply to save money, instead we should bear in mind the teaching of the Buddha from the Mahasutta Jataka that Thanang chache anga varasa hetu angkang chache jivithang rakkamano angkang thanang jivithang japi saphang chache naro dhammā manusaranto chache mata sukham thiro. One who to save a limb rich treasure gave would sacrifice his limb, his life to save. Yea, wealth, limbs, life and all would discard. The virtues of the Dharma to guard. The wise ones sacrifice lesser happiness to gain the greater happiness of the many folk. Finally, what we notice from this story is the power of faith to purify the mind. When we talk about faith in Buddhism, we do not mean blind faith, but faith in the existence of the Buddha and faith in the working of the law of karma, that doing good deeds really gives rise to good results, and the faith that the results of one's good or bad karma will follow one until it gives its fruits. If we are able to cultivate even one small part of the faith shown by Maṭṭakuṇdali, but also act upon it to cultivate good deeds in our lives, we can rest assured that our future will be secure, both for this lifetime and the hereafter. Mr. Pailack had cultivated a lot more than mere faith in the Buddha throughout his life, so it is to be expected that with all the good deeds the deceased cultivated during his life, and those cultivated by all the members of his family, together with the merits of all these funeral ceremonies organized in his name, especially the merit of giving today's Dhamma talk about Maṭṭakuṇdali and the power of faith in the Buddha, that as Mr. Pailack looks down on us from his new existence, he will be led to an even brighter and more refined status in his afterlife existence. Now, before we hear the chanting of the Maṭṭakuṇdali, I would like to invite everyone to arouse strong faith in the Lord Buddha as we sit for a few moments of meditation together, following the instructions which I will give.